Okay, guys, we are back with session two. Sorry, this will be page 443. One of my favorite sections on progressive exposure, a concept that a lot of people do have a tough time understanding. But this section will last about an hour and 15 minutes. We will take a 5-minute break after this is over as well. So let's get back right to it with Mark and Mark.
Okay, welcome back. Day 4, 2022 Master Trader Program. We're in the second workbook. We're now moving to page number 469. A lot of pages we went through. We're going to talk about position sizing now, which, as I said earlier, is one of the most often or most popular topics that I get asked questions on. I keep it pretty simple with position sizing, and there's definitely, you have to make the determination on your own as far as what your risk tolerance is, and then that is going to it's dynamic. It's a moving target because, as we said before, when we're first getting into the market, we don't have any profits, and maybe we're in a bear market and we're not sure if the market has turned into a better environment. We're keeping the position sizing smaller, and we're only going to move it up when we're getting that traction. But there are some general rules of thumb. All right. And I want to go over those, and then I'm going to show you what it all boils down to and what you really have to pay close attention to, and what rules the day, if you will. So first of all, as I said, 8% is my maximum stop, 10 to 12 staggered. If I have a 4 and a 12, that's 16% divided by the two half positions. It would still give me that 8% loss. So that's my outsized losses are going to be, regardless of the position size. That's it. That I'm never going larger than that. There's a hard line in the sand there. Like, there's no questions asked. And I'll tell you, this is where this one-time moment that I talked about earlier rears its head, because I've rarely seen Mark Ritchie and a few traders that I've worked with and trained and so forth, that I've seen that are religious, that there is no bending this rule. People bend this rule. They bend this rule. And the problem is they bend it at the worst possible time. Mark, you didn't talk about it in this Master Trader Program yet, but we've talked about it many times about how trades and success, and even the times where the market's bad, comes in bunches. And that's one of the things that you have to be real careful, because when the losses get big and they balloon, sometimes it's at the worst possible time, when you have this one-time moment, and you get into these trending periods where you get a lot of losses in a row. So now you've got a lot of losses, and you got big losses. I mean, as far as, I don't know, can you talk a little bit about your own anecdotal evidence and what we've talked about with trades, how they come in bunches, and that this isn't just where you get, if you have a 50% batting average, it happens back and forth, back and forth. We can go long periods of time, right, where you're getting stopped.
Absolutely. And you should make another, note in your notebook to say, that the wins and losses are not evenly distributed. And what that means is, if you think of it in terms of a coin flip, if you say it's 50-50, most people think that means it's heads, tails, or heads, tails, tails. And the reality is, the runs of wins and losses can be very chunky in there. And the biggest mistake people make is, say they have 3 or 4 losses in a row, and they think, well, I got to have a winner, so they trade bigger. And that's precisely, the opposite of what you want to do. I've shared this, I think, before at the Master Trader Program, or at least on the platform a time or two. I have a friend who is a PhD in statistics, and he was visiting my office one day, and I was explaining to him what I do, and he was actually saying, well, that makes exact sense why you do things the way you do, because he said they used to have these experiments where students would have to come up with a random generators of heads and tails, a 50-50 distribution, say 200 times. And the professors would be able to pick out which ones that the computer made and which ones the students made, because a human automatically thinks it's gonna be very orderly. They don't put 10 heads in a row or 10 tails in a row in their distribution. But in random,
Right.
in nature, that is what actually winds up happening all the time. And I've had periods where I think I've lost 15, 20 in a row. That just tells you right there, you're going to have those periods. So you have to continue to sit there and cut those losses off by trading smaller. And the position sizing, is really where everything is. This is where it all comes out in terms of the risk management and position sizing working together to make sure that if you're going to have 15 or 20 losers, you're also going to have 15 or 20 winners. You want to use that to your advantage on both sides of the distribution curve.
And you just made the argument for progressive exposure also, what we
course.
previously talked about. And so what Mark's talking about, the flipping the coin, also, I actually have studied a lot of different, I was always fascinated with probabilities. Even when I was a little kid, for some reason, I was always fascinated with probabilities. I studied the roulette wheel. I was so curious to see how long, because they have these the fallacy of being able to, if it goes X amount of times on black, you play red. Well, theoretically, it can go on black for your entire lifetime. But the law of averages say that that ball will bounce around and it'll be only so long that it can go in any one color. I've seen the roulette wheel with my own eyes, watching spins in the roulette wheel in Vegas or Atlantic City. I've tracked them where it went over 40 times. For a 50-50 distribution, went red, black, evenly distributed over 40 times on one color. So again, and that's about as near perfect of a distribution as you can get. A flip of a coin or a roulette wheel, that's about as, the law of averages, that's what you can count on them pretty much as anything there. Trading, there is nothing that says that it has to. There isn't no 50-50. The odds.
So just putting that in layman's terms, Mark, the idea is who can survive 40 losses in a row trading larger.
Or trading the same. Forget about trading larger.
Great point. Trading larger is impossible, right?
Right.
Trading the same is going to put you in a drawdown that is way too big.
Death by 1,000 cuts, you could still blow up. So just because you keep your losses small does not mean that you can't blow up your account or you can't take a large drawdown. You can. That's why position sizing still has to be, and all this has to be used with progressive exposure. It all works together. Everything works together and it all supports each other. But as Mark just said, on the opposite side, that's how you create that opportunity and that leverage. So now your average loss, your max